Okay, continuing with our breaking news about the arrest of a Virginia resident in the attempted plot to attack D.C. Metro Rail stations. I want to talk to Tom Fuentes, former assistant director at the FBI. He's joining us now. Tom, I don't know how much you've heard about this. It's all developing as we speak right now, but this man was arrested, from what I understand, because he attempted to assist people who he believed to be members of Al-Qaeda. I can't make sense of this because I don't really understand this world as well as you do, but it seems that this might have been a setup. In other words, he wasn't really working with Al-Qaeda.
Well, that's correct. He thought he was working with Al-Qaeda and, mistakenly ended up trying to help law enforcement authorities, the FBI, further this plot to blow up metro stations in Washington, D.C. Tell me how that works. If he wasn't working with Al-Qaeda, this is why the FBI is saying that no one was ever in danger. What's the point here? They were trying to draw somebody out who otherwise would be helping Al-Qaeda? Well, in this situation, in similar cases, they draw themselves out, make themselves known that they're trying to further a plot to do damage. And in this case, where the FBI learns of it, they try to get into the system, get into a relationship with the individual so they can trust them. And the idea here is you want to find out who else he's working with, who put him up to this. Has he received training somewhere overseas? Is he part of a network? Are other metro stations throughout the United States or throughout the world going to be attacked? So the purpose of the investigation isn't just to get him, but to see if it stops with him. And that piece of information we don't have at this point. So reading what we have from the FBI, we don't know that they got anywhere with figuring out whether this was anything more than a guy who thought it might be neat to associate himself with a terrorist organization and bomb rail stations. Right. Over a several-month period, they would be assessing that. They would be monitoring his phone calls and his internet email traffic and physically surveilling him to see who he's associating with. And if they came to the conclusion that he's not working with others or they've completely identified everyone that they think may be involved, then they could go forward and actually arrest him and begin the prosecution, go public with the case, bring it out. Clearly, according to this report, they were tracking him until Monday, until October 25th. That they returned an indictment, that he's been arrested now. Does that indicate to you that there aren't other players in this, that this guy, they figured out was working on his own, or does that not tell us that? It does tell you that, because his arrest being put out in the media would tell any associates of his to flee the country or try to escape, because they've been identified through him. So obviously they would not bring the arrest of him to the public if they were worried that others might be involved and might escape. Tom, the difficulty with this kind of program, I mean, on one level, you want to think, wow, this is great work on the part of the FBI, that they were able to sort of smoke this guy out and find out. It seems to be a lot of work involved with finding a bunch of guys who don't even have the sophistication to know that they're not dealing with terrorists. Well, at the time of these investigations, you don't know that, and you don't know that they're not going to come across somebody who does have the capability to finalize the act. So that's the difficulty of these cases. They can't just walk away from it and say, well, we don't think he has a lot of people in his network that can carry this out, so we're not going to bother. They really just have to do it. They have to eliminate all possibility that there are others involved or that the attack could involve other cities, other countries. And Fran Townsend is with us as well. Fran, are you on the phone?
I sure am, Allie.
Fran, so if you're going through, so it turns out, look, this is what we're gleaning at the moment. This may evolve into something else, but at the moment what we're gleaning is that this guy thought he had hooked up with some terrorists, thought he was helping them out in the attacks on rail stations in the D.C. area. He was never working with terrorists, and it seems that he doesn't seem to have a deep bench of associates. In other words, he may have been a lone wolf. And Tom Fuentes was just saying this is what the FBI has to do. They've got to smoke these guys out, because until you get to the end of the investigation, you don't know whether he's got deeper ties, deeper roots, and greater capability than he has. This must be an exhausting drain on the resources of investigation and law enforcement if we're going around sniffing out lone wolves.
That's right, Allie, but what is the alternative? I mean, to Tom's point, what you care about, the message here that the public will get is that the FBI is on the lookout to identify potential threats before they manifest themselves, and will follow them to the end. I mean, as we've seen in other lone wolf cases, you don't know when a guy is a lone nut or when he's associated with other individuals, and it does require a lot of, in a post-9/11 world, a lot of work and a lot of resources. But that's the good news, that the FBI can actually do this now before they no longer wait until after something's blown up to put the case together. They're looking to thwart these before it becomes a real threat.
Now, Fran, we never know, because every time we thwart these things before they become a threat, you never know how it would have played out. If we have a bunch of people in this country who are these lone wolves, they don't have deep ties, they somehow think this is an interesting thing to do, what happens to these people who are not caught? Let me put it this way, could this guy have ended up doing real damage?
Absolutely. We know that al-Qaeda, particularly when you're talking about a potential threat to a transportation system like the subway, which is the economic lifeblood in Washington and New York City and major urban areas. And so, I mean, one individual, look at Faisal Shahzad. He had not a deep bench as far as we know. He was the Times Square bomber, not a deep bench as far as we know here inside the United States. Did turn out he had ties overseas, but one individual, if he had correctly put that bomb together, and he was very close, could have killed dozens of people and caused mayhem all over Manhattan. And so you really do have to care about the lone wolf.
Yeah, we do. And thank you for that, Fran. I appreciate the perspective that you bring to it, as well as Tom Fuentes, former assistant director at the FBI. We'll continue to follow the story, and if anything new develops on this, we will bring it to you. Stay with us. You're watching CNN.